Oops. Welcome back to Coach Blake's Breakdowns. You're back with me, Coach Blake, and of course, Drew. We're talking NFL draft prospects today. Drew, I assigned the first 5 because I didn't want to pick the first 5. So who are we talking through today, Drew?
With me, it's always going to start with quarterbacks. It's always we're going to go. I love talking QBs. This is a fun class. Everybody's talking about it. I'm going to break down my top 5, and I think we have the same players top 5-wise. We're just our 4s and 5s are flipped, so a tiny bit of difference there. But I'm super excited to dive into this class. Really fun, polarizing class. A lot of fun names. With the right jumps, there could be like a lot of guys that pretty easily be a 5 or 6 first round QB class. But yeah, I'm really excited to dive into these guys.
And I think the biggest thing, right, with this class that I've run into is like which of these guys realistically come out. And this is like I feel the conversation that gets kind of passed over by media, though it's brought up. But I feel like the real decision for these guys needs to come down to, do I want to be the quarterback that comes out in a deeper quarterback class and maybe end up in a better situation, though a lower draft pick, or do I want to wait and get that higher draft status? And that's why it's always interesting to kind of try and decide which of these guys. I feel like we're all pretty confident that Arch is going to go back. I don't believe we're not talking about him this episode. But there is a quarterback we are going to talk about this episode that I feel like is going to go back. I feel like shouldn't declare, but we'll get into that as we go. But Drew, I'll throw this thing to you. It's your 5 guys that you selected, so I'll let you take it, and I'll just provide my commentary.
Yeah, there we go. So it works out perfectly. The guy you alluded to right there will be my number 5, so we'll kick it off with him. And that's LaNorris Sellers out of South Carolina, the quarterback who is supposedly the number 1 overall pick in 2026. So everybody keeps telling me. I can't really get there with him. I think, like you mentioned, I think he very much is a 2027 guy. I would be surprised to see him in this class. And I think it would be a mistake if he did come out in this class. And as far as the Arch conversation goes, I'd like to have actual tape I can grade before we start talking about him as a prospect. So, yeah, he's also very much a 2027 guy to me. But as far as Sellers goes, I think a lot of it is just, again, people chasing with QB discourse nowadays. We need the mobility, we need the athleticism, we need the out of structure playmaking. That's ceiling to us. That's the ceiling we're going to chase. And I just like people automatically, because of the age and how he played as a freshman, redshirt freshman, whatever he was. They're just expecting this kind of fabled leap, this year. And I think between the ears, he's just got a longer way to go than that. I think we're setting him up to kind of fail this season. Because I think, like I said, mentally, I think between the ears, there's just a lot of things that are missing right now. To me, my biggest gripe is the timing. I think he and again, that's going to be expected from a first-year starter. Not always going to be the most on-time guys, in the world. But I think it really is. He was extremely late. That's where a lot of the interceptions came from. Was having the correct read. But just getting to it late and letting DBs break on it, come downhill on it. That was my biggest problem with him. I think his eyes get stuck too, not the processor I'd like to be. And again, I'm somebody that values processing a lot. Like we're going to see with these rankings with me, it's pretty easy to see that I value in structure playmaking or in structure play and processing and just the mental side of quarterback play. That's kind of where I live as an evaluator. So that's why I'm a little bit lower on Sellers. Again, I think the accuracy was pretty good. I think when he missed high, which was a problem. That's something you don't really ever want to see from quarterbacks because that's where disaster happens, is when you miss high, especially over the middle. Again, I already mentioned him being late. I think he's really indecisive. Again, it's to be expected from a guy that's a first-year starter, especially somebody is athletic and mobile as he is. And I think calling that South Carolina offensive line a work in progress is probably generous. But I think just he dealt with a lot of pressure, but I think a lot of it was self-inflicted too. I think he tends to hit the eject button too soon. He pulls his eyes down. He wants to run really, really early, even when he doesn't need to, when there's still throws to be made and time in the pocket when it's still clean. But it's easy, it's easy to see why. I mean, he's one of the most gifted runners I've ever seen at the quarterback position. It's incredible. Like very Cam Newton-esque as a runner. Like, he's incredibly athletic. The contact balance is absurd for a quarterback. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, he's routinely shaking off, like Peter Woods and TJ Parker in the Clemson game. He's just throwing those guys off like they're not even there. He's incredibly hard to bring down in the backfield and as a runner. I mean, he tore up Clemson on the ground. It was ridiculous. Just an incredibly gifted runner. Very, very good athlete. He's got the arm talent too. I wouldn't call it like, Josh Allen, Anthony Richardson level. It's not the very top elite upper echelon, arm strength, but he does get a lot of drive on it. He's got a talented arm. just very physically gifted, and that's why people love him. You know, people love the physical tools. I just can't quite, get there on the projection just purely based off that. I need to see some tangible mental steps before I can get there. But again, I don't love the accuracy problems. I don't love the processing. I don't love the eyes. I would like to see him get better in the pocket. But the physical tools are easy to fall in love with. I see why people love him. I'm just not quite there on him yet.
Yeah, no, and that's the biggest thing for me. And you and I have talked about this, and I'm going to take the credit for it because I'm going to say it on the show. But no, I think so many people get excited and they're like, oh, this is a decent quarterback, but he can run really well. I love this quarterback. He's an awesome quarterback. Look how well he can run. But I don't know. And maybe it's just who I am as an evaluator, but I'm going to care first if my quarterback can throw the ball well and can get to the right throw. Right. And that's where I'd love to see Sellers go back and just take his athleticism, develop more physically, develop more mentally, and then come back and have, now 3 years, if he goes back next year, 3 years of really good film showing his athleticism and showing that even when these college defenses adjust to his play style, he's able to still succeed. Like if you have 3 good years of starting level film, teams are going to love you. And I feel like, even if you're going into a class with Arch, there's going to be teams that are going to have Sellers higher than Arch because Sellers is going to have the higher athletic floor. He's going to be a much better runner. And again, you're back to the running. But I don't think I think Sellers can close the gap from a processing perspective where Arch is going to have to, make some significant strides to, get to a Sellers level of athleticism. So I think he would do himself a lot of good by waiting and getting the experience, getting the development at the college level, and then jumping. I think if Sellers goes back, he could be a very day one ready quarterback as a rookie. And I don't say that like ever, but I feel like with the range of talent that he has and what he's able to do, I feel like he could make that happen. But I think you hit it on the head with what he's good at, what he's bad at. Just you want to see him work and succeed in structure. Like the athleticism is fun. Watching him snap off like 40+ yard touchdown runs on a consistent basis is fun. Watching him gash Clemson on the ground was a blast to watch. But at the end of the day, that's not going to make you a franchise quarterback at the NFL level. You're not going to get run like you are in college at the NFL level. And if you are, it's not going to be as sustainable over a 17 or soon to be probably 18 game season. So I just worry about him holding up. I know he's one of the bigger bodies in this class, though it doesn't look like it. I was watching through the film, and I would not have picked him to be the biggest guy in this class. I would have picked the guy I think we're going to talk about next is probably bigger than him, honestly, just from a film perspective. But yeah, looking into it, you're really excited about the frame, the athleticism, like you said, the arm talent, but just from a mental perspective, he's got to become a better quarterback. But finishing out that high on your board already, it shows a good floor. But I just want to see him really shore up that floor, get the snaps under his belt, and develop as a quarterback outside of just being a good athlete. And that really make him jump up my board. But I feel like he could have a huge ceiling as far as draft outcomes when it comes to the 2027 draft class.
Yeah, for sure. I think the mobility conversation is something that's just completely jumped the shark. I don't really know when it happened or what. Maybe it was Lamar Jackson, the kind of 2019, 2020 surge that he had. But I don't want to say that I completely disregard it because that's just irresponsible as an evaluator. But it's certainly the thing that I care the least about in a quarterback. It kind of shows the guy we'll talk about a little bit later. My number 3, I guess. But and number 2/1. I don't care if you can run. I really don't. At the end of the day, I do not care how mobile you are. Hell, look at the best guys in history. The greatest quarterbacks in NFL history are not the guys that were mobile. It's just there's a reason that the great quarterbacks are the great quarterbacks, and it's what's between the ears and arm talent. To me, that is the most important thing: is can you process and can you put drive behind the ball. And I think mobility is a nice addition for sure. Is it a nice layer to an offense? Absolutely. But again, it's just something that it's certainly the thing that I weight the lightest when I evaluate QBs. So that's just why I tend to be lower and more against consensus now, because I think that's just where draft media and just football as a whole has gone in terms of QBs. But yeah, jumping into our number 4, or my number 4, I guess, is Drew Allar out of Penn State. And he's a guy that I was a big Drew Allar guy last year. I was really hoping that he would declare. I really liked him a lot. He was very, very close to Cam Ward grade-wise for me last year. I think I've kind of cooled off a tiny bit on him as I come back through the 24 tape. But he's still an early day 2 guy to me. I really like the tape overall. I think he's good at the right things. Like I think the hard things, the big hurdles, he's already over. He's got just small stuff to clean up. One of the best arms I've ever watched. I mean, it's really, he's got the NFL stature. He's 6'5". You mentioned he's huge, like 6'5", 230, I would think, just looking at film. Like he's a very, very big body.
Massive.
Yeah. Not a stellar athlete. Again, not a guy you ever want on the move, but again, I don't really care. But the arm talent is absurd. I mean, it is just effortless velocity, every layer of the field, awesome touch. The ball just explodes out of his hand. It's a rocket, which I love. Again, most important thing about QB evaluation to me is arm talent. So that's the first thing I'm always going to look at. He passes that test with flying colors to me. I think he's a good processor too. I think he's one of the faster guys in this class. Like his eyes don't get stuck. He does a good job routinely working through his progressions. He gets through the backside of progressions pretty consistently. I think he reads the field pretty well. I think too, Penn State's got a pretty advanced pro style offense. He's asked to do things at a pretty high level. They got a lot of pro style concepts in their offense, and he runs them pretty well. And he was dealing with a historically bad receiving group at Penn State last year. Like it was Tyler Warren.
Bad.
It was Tyler Warren and nobody. Like those boundary guys were atrocious. It was god awful, honestly. You've seen why Penn State has just thrown every NIL dollar they have down to the last cent at receiver, and for good reason. But again, I'm excited to see him come back. I think the accuracy, it's the linear progression is what gives me faith in him, because you see 2023 Drew Allar, one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks I've ever watched in my life. Like it was horrible. You can look at the weighted on target percentage or whatever from all the places that chart that. Like it was atrociously bad at every single layer of the field. And then you see the jump from 2024. It's incredible. I mean, again, there still accuracy issues at certain levels of the field. Yeah, there were. Like he's not the most accurate guy in the world. But I mean, he jumped from one of the worst in the country to above average in 1 year. So the level of development that you've seen, both from a mental and physical perspective, from 2023 to 2024, is what gives me faith in him. When you see guys on that correct development track, that's just something that gives me a little bit more faith. Again, we joke that I turned into a floor guy when I started off as such a ceiling guy. But to me, I think I'm still very comfortable, like putting guys high based on projections. But I can't do it. I don't have blind faith anymore. I think I have to see some sort of foundation to build off of. And I think Allar has shown me enough of a foundation to expect a jump from him. Again, I think, to me, the decision-making is the biggest problem with him. That's your biggest jump left to fix. I like the Notre Dame game that apparently made everybody completely jump ship on him. That was, you saw it show up there. Like the decision-making, he'll give you a couple of head scratchers per game. He's got to reel in. But while also doing that, he's also not aggressive enough, especially downfield. He strikes a weird balance between not being aggressive and also being a poor decision maker. It's impressive, honestly, to find a middle ground on that, but he does. So you'd like to see him get aggressive and take more chances, especially downfield, because of the arm talent that he has, be able to use that more, to stretch the field vertically. But you got to reel in, the turnover proneness. You'd like to see him just be a little bit safer with the ball, keep it out of harm's way more than he does. I think the pocket is fine. I wouldn't write home about it, but I also wouldn't call it an issue. Not a guy that's going to create out of structure. He's an in structure guy through and through, but I don't really care about out of structure. At the end of the day, if you can work in structure, you're going to succeed. I think Allar is good where it matters. And if he can clean up kind of the small things, the small hangups that I have with him now, I could very easily see him as a day one guy come 2026.
Yeah, no, Allar is going to be super interesting to watch, because another guy is going to end the year with a lot of experience under his belt, a lot of development under his belt. And I honestly wonder, watching the film, the decision-making aspect that you brought up, I almost feel like from 2023, they reeled him back. And I feel like he spent all of last season really forcing a lot of intermediate throws.
Yep.
And almost as if he was focused on like, hey, I'm not going to just uncork this downfield all the time. I want to try and get through my progression, try and develop as a processor, try and, get to the right spots. And so I'm personally really excited to see if they just let him come into the season and open it back up again. And after trying to, really rein that in and work on him from a quarterback, fundamental standpoint, if they let him come out more developed this season and just let him start airing it out, we see like real, what his ceiling could be as a quarterback with him really uncorking the ball. And I think with all five of the guys we're going to talk about today, where we discuss, athleticism not being something that we value a lot, I think the Drew Allar and some of these other guys we're going to talk about, style of athleticism was what I really prefer, and kind of that Josh Allen of like, I can go and get the 4 or 5, 6 dirty yards if something's open and we have coverage issues and guys aren't getting open. And Allar run through a linebacker. I mean, it kind of reminds me, there's runs that he has that remind me of like Jackson Dart, where it's like, hey, let's not do that maybe, but that was really fun to watch. And that's where I feel like a lot of this class and a lot of the modern athleticism, I feel like you get really hyped because people love to see the high-end athletic guys. Whereas what I really like watching and seeing is some of these guys that process really well, knowing when, okay, I just need to go get 4 yards here. I just need to try and scramble for a first down here. I just need to escape out the middle of the pocket and go get what I can get. And that's what I really like about his game. There's times when Penn State's driving down the field, like you said, the receiver talent's not fun to watch, but there's times where this offense gets really, really efficient. And you can tell that Allar's just locked in. He's making the right decisions. He's working down the field. And it shows, again, that ceiling. If I can get this Drew Allar, even if it's every other drive in a game, I feel like I'm going to win more than I lose in those situations. So I don't know. I really feel like I want to see him launch the ball downfield on target this year, because I feel like that's what I've been waiting to see out of him. If he can have that deep touch, if he can get the ball where it needs to be instead of forcing these intermediate throws and holding himself back. But I also wish he would check it down more. I feel like he's got a lot of open receivers low that he passes for those intermediate. And that's, again, where I feel like in 2024, he was just forcing everything. Like in his mind, right? I felt like I can't throw anything under 6 yards, but I also can't throw anything over 24 yards. So it's
exactly.
He was like in this box where it's like all of his throws were landing in the same range. And, like I said, it looked good. There was times where he really turned it on. It was slicing up defenses and working his way down the field. There's other times where it just felt like it was like, wow, you don't have to throw that ball. You don't have to force that ball. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I'm interested to see what the offense looks like and what they allow him to do within that offense this year, where it should be wide open to him as a returning starter. And again, he's going to end this year with so many games under his belt, which is just something that I've really latched onto as a data point lately. But I'm excited. I didn't love him last season. I know a lot of people were talking about him coming out last year and about how he could have done X, Y, Z in the draft last year. And I'm glad that he went back. I think he's got a lot of room where he can really jump up the board. He's my 5th rated guy on this list. I have Sellers with a 4.04 grade and Drew Allar with a 3.7, but I feel like Drew Allar's got a lot more ceiling to work into, and Sellers has a lot more technical development. That, again, I like to see him go back another year, where he's like a year behind Drew Allar, where I feel like this is going to be the year Drew Allar is able to make a big jump from somewhere to, postseason scouting with the development he's able to show in the regular season. Whereas Sellers, I feel like even after this year, if he's able to clean up some stuff, he's still going to have a little bit of a way to go. But yeah, pretty closely graded. But just 2 fun guys that I feel like are the antithesis of each other, right? Where Sellers is the guy that's going to be the high-end athlete. He's going to run all over you. There's going to be games like that Clemson game where he's going to rush for over 100, 120 yards and just be a true dual-threat quarterback. And there's times where Allar, I feel like if they allow him to open it up, there's going to be times where they're going to have, sub 4-play drives because he's just going to air one out. And if his receiver can go find it, there's going to be times where late in the game, he's going to be able to really orchestrate really good 2-minute drives. And he's a guy, I fell in love with Seth Hennigan last year at the Senior Bowl. He put together that game-winning drive. If Drew Allar can find a way to do that this year, he's going to rise up my board irresponsibly. I'll tell you that right now.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they're both really fun guys, but to me, there's a pretty distinct gap between 3 and 4. For me on my list, grade wise, especially like the top 3, I'm comfortable, like really comfortable calling these guys top end day 1 guys already. And then there's like the gap between like where I've got Drew Allar more as an early day 2 guy and Sellers more as a mid day 2 guy, where I've just got a lot more questions with them. But I'm really excited about this top 3. I think these are all really, really fun prospects and all really good prospects. And 3 is going to be Fernando Mendoza, the former Cal quarterback, now Indiana Hoosier. He's a guy that really you didn't hear anything about during the season last year. At least I didn't. And he kind of took it by storm as soon as we got to the summer. With guys like Nate Tice and Corey Kinnon and all kind of carrying that Mendoza QB1 torch. And again, like I don't think that's crazy at all. There's a very, very clear path to him being QB1. Again, I like the top 2 guys a little bit more, but Mendoza's in that conversation, absolutely. To me, he is, again, your quintessential pocket passer. Like he's a very, very subpar athlete. Never a guy that's going to create out of structure and be a playmaker for you. But he just wins in structure. And to me, you win in structure, that's all that matters. So I think extremely high-end processor, a guy that works really, really fast. The eyes don't get stuck. Very, very smart player. Work through his progressions. Again, I thought Cal had a pretty decent set of pro style progressions he had to work through. He did a good job. He takes the underneath stuff when he needs to. He's not overly aggressive, doesn't try to push the football where it shouldn't. I think he takes care of the football on a very, very consistent basis. Very, very smart player. I like the pocket presence. I think he has a tendency to kind of panic under pressure a little bit, which you'd like to see him clean up, especially for a guy that's not quite as athletic. I think you kind of have to make up for that by being better under pressure in the pocket. But again, I think on a general basis, he does pretty well. It's just kind of nitpicky stuff. He's got a really, really fun arm. As a live arm, that ball flies off his hand. Really true arm talent. To me, when we talk about the ceiling discussion, like people are going to call Mendoza a low ceiling guy. But I don't think that's true. To me, the only people would have called, people would have called Andrew Luck a low ceiling guy. People would have called, like Matt Stafford, perfect example. People would right now in this current QB discourse environment, people would call Matt Stafford a low ceiling QB, and that's just flat out not true. The only true limiter physically for a quarterback to me is arm talent. Like Brock Purdy's a low ceiling QB because he doesn't have an arm. Tua Tagovailoa is a low ceiling QB because he doesn't have an arm. But to me, like Matt, like the sky is the limit as long as you actually can put zip behind your passes. Mobility has nothing, and out of structure playmaking has nothing to do with ceiling to me personally. So Mendoza, I'm not going to buy into the low ceiling talk with him. I think he's a guy that could very easily, because the arm talent is that good. I don't consider him limited by that. Again, very good processor, accurate at all levels of the field. I thought he had a pretty flexible arm too for a pocket guy. Like he can create some velocity from different arm slots. Overall, I'm just really impressed with every bit of in-structure play from him.
Yeah, no, and that ball zips off his hand, man. Like
it flies, dude.
I think it was him and maybe Sellers that I think I texted you after like the first drive, and I was like, "Holy velocity!" Like these guys just flies out of their hand, and that doesn't necessarily always translate to like depth and getting the ball downfield. Though I think both of these guys can do that. But just when you talk about no, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Like when you're talking about the QB like conversation, to me, velocity matters infinitely more than distance does and pushing it downfield. Like because you can like. I can count on one hand the amount of times I've ever had to see an NFL QB throw the ball 60-plus yards or 55-plus yards. But it matters on a play-to-play basis, being able to drive the ball into super tight intermediate windows. So when I say arm talent, that's purely what I like. Cam Ward is a perfect example. Cam Ward, distance-wise, not the best guy in the world. He couldn't put a lot of air out of those passes, but he zipped the ball in there on an intermediate basis. Like he had a lot of drive behind his passes. So when I say arm talent, that's more what I mean.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what I was going to say with arm strength. Like that's how I always evaluate arm strength. Like I know a lot of people hear arm strength, they think Josh Allen, Anthony Richardson, legend Joe Milton, as we're all familiar.
Oh yeah.
But no, when I look at arm strength, it's about how this thing comes off the hand, right? Am I able to squeeze it into the windows? Am I able to beat a defender with my throw, opposed to letting this thing always float out there? And as fun as the Russ Wilson moon balls are, I don't think that shows arm strength. I just think that throw shows great. Yeah, the trajectory, right? Like I can get that ball up and I can float it in there, but like you're not going to get it there in a timely manner, and it's going to get knocked down anyway. But if you're able to, especially when you're cooking on some of these longer drives where you have to really start dissecting defenses and just squeeze it into some tighter windows to make plays happen, I feel like Mendoza, and that's why I feel like he's so high. Like, and a lot of these guys, like the QB purists, that whether they're former QBs or they are really heavy into quarterback play, they're going to love Mendoza because outside of, some of the smaller, I think mechanical things that he's probably going to clean up this offseason, he does everything out of the pocket, inside the pocket, I guess, that you want to see out of a quarterback. He's very, very strong base, very stable base, very consistent, upper body. He can generate, like you said, the velocity is able to generate out of the different arm slots, like not just like standing in pocket clean, able to rifle this thing into a tight window. Like he can be on the move and he can still rifle balls in. He can still beat defenders with high velocity throws to the sideline. And I actually have him graded as the second best improviser of this group of five that I have graded right now, where I feel like, again, like I just talked about with Allar, it's not about the athleticism. It's about, hey, if I'm rolling out or I'm under pressure and I find an easy opportunity to get 3, 4, 5 yards, I'm going to be able to consistently get those 3, 4, 5 yards and just keep the ball moving downfield. Can't go broke making a profit, right? If I'm able to get yards regularly on a consistent basis in a variety of situations, that's going to look well for the long term because that's what you're going to be asked to do in the NFL. Where even if you get drafted high, you're probably going to have a bad offensive line because the teams that are drafting high haven't been able to have the luxury to invest in that position. So you're going to be under pressure. You're going to be under duress. Teams are going to be trying to get after you. And I feel like out of this group that we've talked about so far, Mendoza, out of the three of them, is the guy that I trust to keep the ball moving and not blow up my offense. And I think I've talked to you about this, where my quarterback evaluation is a whole conversation we could have, but I'm great at finding tier 2 quarterbacks because I like the guys that you don't have to necessarily cater your offense to, but they won't kill your offense. The guys that can just get in and they'll make your offense work for you, and they'll find a way to make it work for them. And I feel like Mendoza is a guy where, it sounds crazy when you say it, but I feel like he's very scheme transcendent, where you can drop him into a variety of different schemes and it'll work. He'll find a way to make that offense work. And that's why I think he's such a high floor guy, and probably one of the better floors out of this group right now coming into the season, where he's technically developed. He has the traits, the talent that you like to see, but then he has it between the ears, in my opinion, where he's, again, not going to blow up an offense. Where I like to see him improve is just, I feel like the accuracy wasn't always there. I feel like there was times where, again, he could lock it in and he was dissecting defenses, but there was times where he's trying to hit some of these crossers and he's throwing way behind him. He's trying to throw some of these deeper shots downfield and he just can't find his guy. Some of these, more layered throws over linebackers, he just doesn't have the touch to hit those. And again, that's where I feel like mechanically he'll correct some things and be able to adjust that and be able to bump up those scores. And then I felt like, as good at improvising as I felt like he was, there are times where I feel like he just loses a sense of what's happening around him in the pocket. It gets very locked in downfield, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but there's times where I feel like he could protect the ball a little bit better, or he could maybe slip out of a sack where he just doesn't even feel like he sees it coming or feels it coming. But again, just all stuff where I feel like you can improve that over an off season. The biggest things for me being the accuracy and the touch on his ball, but overall, really love the player. He's my third highest rated guy in this group. Jumped up to what was he? I got rid of that page. Filibuster. He graded out at a 4.72 actual grade, which lands him at the top end of kind of that range of quarterbacks that we just talked through. I have a pretty big gap between 2 and 3 out of this group, but those 3 quarterbacks, though it's a pretty wide range, they all kind of landed in the same overall range on my board right now.
Yeah, he's currently 10th on my board, or 9th on my board. It's the top 10. My QB3 as well. I really like him. I'm glad you brought up the improvisational discussion too, because I think, again, people have shifted that definition to. We had this conversation at a pizza joint in Mobile as we wrapped up
we did
coverage about how people talk about improvisational QBs and how the definition is not really where we think it should be. Because I think he does. When I say he's not an out of structure guy, he's not in the modern definition of an out of structure guy. But like the Florida State game, I thought was a perfect example. They had ran a lot of boots in that game, had him on the move a lot, and he was consistently they ran a lot of flood in that game too. He's consistently fitting those boundary shots on flood while on the move. Again, flexible arm, while off base, pretty accurate off platform too. But yeah, I echo a lot of what you said too. I think that he's just a guy that. In the scheme transcendence too is a good point, because honestly, I don't think you should have a QB day one if they're not scheme transcendent. Like I would have a hard time.
100% agree
in the first round if you feel like you have to. They can only fit a certain scheme. Like that's not a day one guy in my eyes. But yeah, I feel comfortable calling Mendoza a day one guy already, and I'm excited to see him in Indiana because Indiana cleaned up the portal this year. Indiana's going to be fun as hell to watch.
It's a couple of fun seasons for the Hoosiers, huh?
Yeah, dude. I mean, they went from worst to first. Like it was one of the worst teams in college football, and they flipped to playoff last year. And now they've got a really, really fun squad. Like they've got on defense, Mikal Kamara, who's an awesome edge rusher. They got D'Angelo Pons, a fun corner. I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. They got a receiver whose name I'm blanking on. It's supposed to be pretty good. Roman Hemby, a guy you're a big fan of at running back.
Out of Maryland.
Yeah, Lee Beebe, the running back out of UAB, my Blazers, go Blazers. Was one of the lone bright spot on a terrible 2024 UAB team was Lee Beebe. He transferred into Indiana. He's going to be the 2, I assume, behind Roman Hemby. But it's a really stacked Indiana squad. Obviously, a lot more talented than the Cal squad he was on before. I'm excited to see him with a better supporting cast around him. And definitely, I'm excited to see him against the Big Ten defenses too. Which I guess technically Cal is also they're ACC, not Big Ten.
They're ACC, yeah. Them and Stanford, the 2 California teams going all the way to the ACC. Well, that's what we love to see. We love to see California teams playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Don't.
Yep. But gotta love it.
No, this Big Ten is going to be a dogfight this year, man.
Oh, it's going to be nasty.
There's some good football players in the Big Ten this year. I feel like this might be the first in a series of steps to really even out the talent disparity across college football. The Big Ten's really pushing for that. They're trying to get that SEC pedigree. for real.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. It's gonna be so much fun this football season. But yeah, jumping into our top two, I kind of want to hit year two first, but again, I say year two. It's tough for me because like these top two guys, they're literally 1 and 2 on my board respectively. Like I've tried over and over. I can't choose between the two because I love them both so much. They're both top 5 grades to me. These are both QB1. Like you could call either one QB1, and I'm fully with you. Again, because they're graded out dead even at 1 and 2 on my board. I don't know. You have a little bit of a few spots between the two, so we'll hit your 2 first. Because I love your 1 so much. I'll talk about him for an hour. So your 2.
No, yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I just was gonna say. I mean, these guys actually separated a lot more on my grades than I thought they were. They were going to, because I like both these guys a lot. But I have Club at 2, Cade Klubnik out of Clemson. And honestly, I think it's just because like I can't say enough positive things about this guy. I think the biggest difference between these two guys, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I think Klubnik is the athletic guy, where Nussmeier is the in structure, processing, different arm slots, getting the ball downfield, dicing up defenses. Like that's what he does. Where Klubnik's more of like he's going to get out there and he can do it. Like again, he processes well. I think he moves really well. He's a great improviser. But he's going to do more with his legs. I mean, they had some design QB run stuff with him that he just really blew open in multiple instances throughout the season. Just overall, I think, yeah, like I said, what separates them is just Nussmeier doesn't have the physical tools that Klubnik has, in my opinion. I think Klubnik's a much better runner, a much bigger body. Just from watching the film, I don't think I've pulled up visuals on either of them right now, actually. So maybe I just totally blew that take out of the water. But
I kind of agree.
And kind of like I talked about with Mendoza, I think Klubnik is a step behind Nussmeier when it comes to just general accuracy and touch. I feel like Nussmeier was able to really just drop some bombs downfield and fit balls into tight windows and put the ball where it needs to be. Not even necessarily leading his guys, but putting the ball where they're not going to get blown up. Where I feel like Klubnik throughout the course of the season has a few balls, especially over the middle, where he's throwing hospital passes down the middle of the field. Where they're still landing and they're hitting where they need to hit to be caught. But I feel like Nussmeier is going to protect his guys a lot more. And that just generates a lot more, run after the catch or yards after catch, whatever stat you want to use. But they're the same thing. But anyway, I yelled at the other day for using, I mixed them up. But anyway, but yeah, I think Klubnik is just the more exciting quarterback. I feel like he's very Jackson Dart-esque, where he has the arm talent, can make the throws, has the velocity off his hand, has the athleticism, but just doesn't have anything like great. Like there's nothing that he does great. I don't think he processes great. I don't think obviously he's not wonderfully accurate. I don't think he's a great athlete. He's no LaNorris Sellers. He can move, but he's not going to just run all over defenses consistently. Like he's just a very average quarterback. He kind of sets the bar of like Cade Klubnik's, who I like prototypically at the quarterback position, but that's why I want to listen to you go on about Garrett Nussmeier, because I think Garrett Nussmeier really embodies like my process, and him being my QB1 really shows that like that's the template I like as a quarterback. He doesn't have, like I said, the athletic upside, though. I feel like, again, improvisationally, I think he can make it happen. I just don't think he likes to. I just don't think he's a willing runner. I think he'd rather operate in the pocket, which I'd rather have my quarterback do. Right? I'm okay. Just sit in the pocket. I think he's got great pocket presence. Moving on to Nussmeier, I think he feels pressure extremely well. Not that Club doesn't. I think they both do, but I think he does it better, where he's able to feel the pressure, slide around in the pocket, and stay in the pocket. Where Klubnik will feel the pressure and get out of the pocket and start running. But I mean, Nussmeier manages the pocket extremely well. Great touch, great arm strength, great processing. Just love the player. So I'll let you gush about him.
Yeah, so it's Klubnik. I'm kind of leaning Nuss 1 as well, even though again you could call either one of these guys QB1, and I'm with you. They're again 1 and 2 on my board, so I'm with both. But I think I probably give the edge to Nuss. But to hit Club first. Klubnik is another guy, like I mentioned with Allar, where it's the linear progression year by year that gives you a little bit of hope, because he's another guy 3-year starter, will be 4-year starter after this. Would this be 3? Because it was 2022, 23.
This will be 3. So I was joking with you. I talk to people about it all the time. I feel like I've been cheering for Klubnik to succeed and go be a great NFL quarterback for like half a decade at this point. So,
yeah, because it was
like
2023 season, 24, and then 25.
Yeah.
So
this will be year 3 for him as a starter. But like, I mean, he's already got he's got over 22 starts under his belt right now. I'm pretty sure. Or close to 20. But I mean, yeah. And anyway, continue.
So yeah, a long experience as a starter. A guy that's got a lot of experience under his belt. But also, like I mentioned, the linear progression thing, there's a clear, distinct jump every year. Like he's gotten significantly better every season that he's played, which is something that gives me a lot of hope. I also, jumping into the season, like I don't see a major place I'd like to see him improve on. I think he's on a general basis at all the fundamental parts of QB play. I think he's good at all of it. So there's not a place in his game I'd point to and say, hey, you have to fix this. Like there's nowhere I could really point out for that right now. Except for getting nitpicky stuff here and there, but nothing major fundamental that I would need him to fix. Yeah, I agree that he's a plus athlete. I think he's a better athlete than Nussmeier, plus athlete on the ground. Clemson, includes a lot more of the design QB run stuff in their offense. And he excels at that. Like he's a great straight line athlete. Pretty powerful guy too as a runner. Like you'll see him lower his shoulder every once in a while. But again, that's stuff that I just really, that's fringe stuff to me. I can give or take. But as a passer, I think he's got a little bit more zip on his passes than Nussmeier. I think they're very, very much in the same tier of arm talent, but I would say Club has a tiny bit more zip. But again, I love he's accurate at all levels of the field. To me, the thing I love most about Klubnik is how ridiculously good he is under pressure. Like he's so the most poised quarterback I've ever watched in my life. It is like the NC State game is the one I always point to. Which is ironic because they won that game by 60 billion points. Like they blew NC State out of the water. He was out of the game by the second half. But like in that first half, he was getting crunched. Like that offensive line was not having a good day. NC State was getting free rushers left and right. And routinely, there were probably 3 different passes I could point to in that first half where he's getting his rib cage bisected by a 40 edge rusher and still 40-plus yard in-air pass down the sideline, whether it be, slot fade, whatever it was, right on the money, down the boundary, at 30, 40 yards downfield while getting crunched. And it's just like that's rare to find that level of poise and that level of accuracy under pressure. And I'll mention this both with Club and Nussmeier. Something that's kind of been sorely missing in quarterback recently, at least in my eyes, is guys that aren't willing to just sit in the pocket and take a shot to deliver something over the middle. Guys are like, a gripe I had with Cam Ward last year is where and I hate it with Sellers, and I think Allar kind of has a tendency to do it too, where guys that they get scared, and for good reason. Like you have a 270-pound edge rusher about to crush your ribs, like that's scary. But it's like guys will pull their eyes down too early, and they'll bail out of the pocket when there's a throw left on the field. Where you would have taken a damn shot from an edge rusher, but there was a throw to be made there. And Klubnik and Nussmeier both don't leave anything. Every throw that could have been made is made. And like he's tough as nails. Klubnik is like he'll get crunched all day long and still get back up and keep doing it, which I have a lot of respect for, and it's something that gives me a lot of kind of peace of mind about him mentally as a prospect. But again, very accurate all over the field, good decision maker on a basis. I think he creates out of structure a little bit more than Nussmeier does, but also a very good processor. I love the deep accuracy too with Klubnik. That's something that really jumps to me. But again, I think he's just fundamentally good at all facets of quarterback play. There's nothing that I'm like significantly worried about with Cade Klubnik. And again, people are going to call him a low ceiling QB. But again, I think the arm talent is there. So what's really limiting him? So he's going to be another guy that draft media is probably not going to like nearly as much as I do. But I don't have any hangups with him. I feel fully comfortable turning over the keys to him on a franchise right now. And then jumping into Garrett Nussmeier, who I've been on since September of last year. Like he would have been my QB1 last year. I love Garrett Nussmeier. He is probably my favorite prospect I've ever watched. And what's so funny with him is, again, first year starter. Like this guy's, does not have the experience of somebody like Cade Klubnik. First year starter, but he looks like he's been playing quarterback for 20 years. Like every part of quarterback play comes so naturally to him, and I'm sure that probably has a lot to do with his dad, because having a dad NFL QB coach, that tends to happen. But he looks like he's been
born and raised.
Yeah, I mean he looks the part though. He looks he's been playing quarterback since he was old enough to walk. To me, the biggest place that shows up at, which is probably my favorite part of his game, is the pocket management, which you talked about a little bit earlier. But he is the best manipulator of the pocket that I've ever watched. He just glides around. The pocket movement is awesome. He stays so calm and poised under pressure, and he'll pull the ball down and evade a player in the pocket and get his eyes right back up, which I love. That's another thing that young quarterbacks typically don't do. Definitely not in their first year starting. But yeah, I think he's also, accurate all over the field. I have no accuracy issues with him. Again, very, very, solid arm talent. Not the upper echelon, but it's not going to limit him at all. He gets plenty of drive behind his passes. I think he's also probably the best processor that I've watched in recent memory. I think too, which is why I love him so much. Too, is he's such a smart player, such a cerebral player for being in his first year as a starter. He's asked to do a lot. Again, that LSU offense is not simple. There's a lot of pro style concepts that are difficult and it asks a lot of him mentally. And he did all of it and more to me. So I think that gives me a lot of hope to him, because I think processing is probably, again, the next to arm talent, the most important part to me. And he passes that with flying colors. I'd like to see a touch get a tiny bit better over the middle of the field. That was something I thought he just put too much gas on a lot of throws. But that's something that'll come with experience. Again, a very nitpicky thing. But again, just so calm and poised under pressure. The pocket is elite. The arm talent is awesome. The accuracy is fun. Best processor I've watched in recent memory. Again, very subpar athlete. People are going to call him a low ceiling QB. I'm not going to buy it, but there's not a fundamental part of quarterback play that I have a problem with Garrett Nussmeier. And I think he's also first overall pick worthy pretty comfortably.
Yeah, and Nussmeier is fun because being in the SEC last year, and really every year, but especially last year, I mean, he went up against a lot of these top-level pass rushers. I mean, he played South Carolina, A&M, Alabama. Like, they're
seeing the best game he had.
Yeah, Ole Miss. And they're putting him in position to really succeed and show that he can succeed under pressure. I know you and I talked about this, and now we're outside of the cycle, so we can actually talk about it, but I feel like every Nussmeier game I watched, especially against some of these top defensive lines, I really looked back and said, wow, this is the LSU offensive line that had two guys that were getting first, second round hype for a lot of the early draft season last year. And coming out, I mean, ended up sending 4 guys to the league, I believe. But I mean, that just every game felt like he was just running for his life. And I feel like he executed it really well. And I feel like, with Nussmeier, I feel like you're going to talk about the South Carolina game, and with Klubnik, you're going to talk about the Georgia game, right? Of just like show it like them being under duress and performing, like not performing to their peak. But I feel like if you go watch those games and just isolate the quarterback and watch what he's realistically doing from a down to down basis, you're going to be really impressed. I really see their floor. I feel like both of those were very solid floor games for them, showing that, like, hey, even if I have to run around, I have to try and make stuff happen, I'm not going to get clear reads and playing some higher level defense, I'm still able to make it happen. That's what I love with Nussmeier. I mean, it feels like he's throwing the hell out of the ball sometimes, where I'm like worried about the health of his shoulder. But I mean, he's, like you said, gassing up a lot of these throws. I think he's got great velo. I would like to see the touch improve, but I feel like he's really good about finding windows to make throws happen.
Yep.
I feel like there was a lot of times where he just got nervous, wanted to get the ball out of his hand, and didn't put the touch on it because he's trying to get it out. So I'm interested to see if he's able to improve on that and really show that he can stay a little bit more poised back there. But again, what first year starting, didn't hate anything I saw on his film. Again, just both of these guys being a significant tier above my third guy on my board right now. Just two really good football players, really good quarterbacks. And like you said, I don't have them as first round grades necessarily. Quarterbacks always get around like 1 round bump, in my opinion, if you look at the overall board. So you got a quarterback with a second round grade, that's a first round quarterback. I'd go get him in the first round. And so I have both these guys with second round grades, but that puts them at 4 and 8 respectively on my current big board, Nuss and Club respectively. But overall, yeah, just two really good quarterbacks. I wouldn't make them first round guys because I don't think they are scheme transcendent. I don't think they're going to be able to get plopped into any scheme and make it happen, because I just don't think they have the athletic potential to be a Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. They're not going to be a QB run type quarterback for you. They can run. They have the potential to make stuff happen on the ground. You aren't going to design that for them. So again, wouldn't call them scheme transcendent, but I do like what they can do. They're both very high level quarterbacks. I do have Nuss edging out Club, but it's. I mean, I'd be happy with either of them on my team personally.
Yeah, and that was something I neglected to touch on with Nussmeier too. Is for a guy in his first year, how awesome the anticipation was. Like, it's incredibly rare to have guys be the level of anticipatory thrower that he was at any point in their college career, much less their first year starting. He just has that sixth sense for where to throw guys open and how to throw stuff when it's not open. And that's another thing where you see, like with Sellers especially, and like Shadur last year drove me nuts. Where guys refuse to throw things until they're open, and then when you throw it, if you wait to throw it until it's open, it's not going to be open when the ball gets there. So I think he's got an awesome feel for that. He's always on time, especially on outbreakers. The willingness to work both inside and outside the numbers from both Klubnik and Nussmeier was really, really awesome to me to see, for me to see. But to me, all this is just so much more impressive from Nussmeier because there's all the lack of experience. Like he's doing all this in his first couple of games. So, all that to me, the stuff that takes guys years and years and years, even in the NFL, like behind NFL coaching staffs to build up in their game, Nussmeier's already got just from pure field perspective in his first year. It's just what gives me so much faith in him.
Yeah, no, I expect Nussmeier to climb. I know he's already top 5 on my board right now, but I expect that grade to go up. I expect him to separate himself from Klubnik a little bit. Just because, I mean, like I said, I've been rooting for Klubnik for a long time, but I feel like I do this every year where I watch him in the summer and I get excited about all the potential. Then he gets out there and just has a couple duds that just show me, again, where his floor is. Where I feel like Klubnik's floor and ceiling are pretty clearly mapped out when you watch him play, where I feel like Garrett Nussmeier has a really good floor and really an open ceiling as far as I'm concerned right now of where he could elevate to. So I can definitely see him pulling away, but I don't know if I see anybody that I've at least heard of so far jumping Klubnik on my rankings. I just feel like they're both very underrated, and it's just because they're not freak athletes. Like they're not going to go again. Like they're not going to go run for 140 yards, 150 yards in a single game. But they're gonna keep your offense alive. They're going to keep you moving, and they're going to win football games. And when I'm evaluating quarterbacks, I want guys that are going to win football games, not necessarily be great fantasy guys or line up the stat sheet. And I think both of these guys have the football IQ, the know-how. And after this season, they both should have the necessary experience per my little checklist now, but to go and be successful quarterbacks and go be quarterbacks capable of winning early on in their career and going really carving out a spot, not being – I feel like there's so much conversation about quarterbacks have to get in and they need time to develop, especially this last year's class, right? I feel like every quarterback could have used a redshirt year in some capacity, even Cam Ward, where it's like you get him in, let him sit for a year behind any vet and just let him see the NFL game and slow it down. He's going to look awesome as a sophomore. But I feel like Nuss and Club are both guys you could drop in day one, and they're going to be able to really excite a lot of fan bases in the NFL. So, again, just two really good quarterbacks and a great group. I think these are really all the top names. I know the next quarterback I have slated to watch is Dante Moore because I feel like he's going to be a really exciting guy. He's really going to burst onto the team this year. But as far as national media goes, these are kind of the top 5 guys that you're hearing kind of getting their names thrown around. So I wanted to make sure. I'm glad that you got us out here getting takes out early on these guys we can follow them through the season. And that's why we want to do the summer scouting stuff, is so we can get takes out on as many players as we can before kickoff. And then we can, come back and check on these and talk about risers and fallers in season and what we're seeing about those guys. And I know you and I, even just from the shadow team perspective, are going to be heavily invested in both of these top guys throughout the season. And I don't know about you, but with my history and my luck, I'm hoping that we can kind of keep consensus where it is right now and let at least one of these guys fall, so I can grab them, kind of not necessarily mid first round, but kind of late, early first round. But overall, I love this class. I think you have a lot of diversity. I mean, you got a guy like Sellers who could go back, could declare, but is really the high end athlete of the group, of this top group. You have Allar, who I feel like is kind of setting the floor for the group, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. He's still a top 5 guy in this class, I think, right now, and deservedly so. You have Mendoza, that I feel like is the guy that can combine the athleticism and just pure quarterback play really well, though he's not a high-end athlete. And then you have Club and Nuss, who I just think are really good quarterbacks. So just a fun group, and it was a fun way to start off the quarterback class. I felt like last year I jumped into quarterbacks. It was just waiting for someone to excite me, and I don't think it ever happened, and I've already hit that this year. So that was fun for me.
Yeah, for sure. This is kind of nice and refreshing after, to me, it was a 1 QB class last year. So really fun to see. Just a more diverse group and a fun guy where we have again, like I said, 5 or 6 guys that very clearly could take that jump to day one guys that we'll get to watch and keep up with all of next year. A lot of which in new and better situations. So yeah, I'm just super excited to watch all these guys and see how these takes age and how we feel about this class closer to next spring.
Sure. But yeah, I think that's all we have on these quarterbacks. But we do have some announcements. We did launch the Substack. Go follow, subscribe, however Substack works. It's free. Go subscribe on Substack. It's at Scout the Shadows. We'll be covering draft prospect stuff, obviously, like we're doing here, and shadow team stuff. It's going to be a lot. I wouldn't say mirrored as to what's going to be on this channel, but just a lot of just our draft takes. We're going to be trying to talk about as many prospects. I mean, at least I am. I never want to speak for Drew. But I'm
That's where all my draft writing goes. So
yeah, I'm gonna. My process this year has been watch a prospect and then word vomit about that prospect. So I finish the tape. I don't even close the window. I switch over to my Google Doc and I just write until I have no more thoughts. And I'm just going to be posting those, obviously a little cleaned up, but not a lot because I hate editing. But I'm going to be posting those on the Substack. So you can go get my summer scouting takes on all these guys. And I'll be doing the same process when I go through their 2025 tape as I get their final grades out there. But I'll be posting players, the write-up. Probably not grades for this portion of the scouting process because there's still a lot of unknowns for a lot of these guys. But I'll also be doing final at least grades per my scouting system as we get to the end of the cycle. And then I know, like I said, I know Drew's gonna be putting content out there. I'll let him go on his little spiel here in a second. But I just want to thank everybody for hopping into the YouTube channel and joining us along this ride. I don't really know what we're going to be doing, just a lot of shout out team stuff, draft stuff. We just love the draft and we love watching football. Yeah. So we're just going to watch football and follow the draft and then talk about it here. But I think I am due up for the next episode. We're picking my first 5 of the summer. And I'd be lying if I said I knew who they were going to be. Let's take a quick look at my board and see if I can pick 5 right now. I know we talked a little bit last week, but I did change my mind. I think I want to watch some running backs. I think we're going to watch. I'm going to call out right now. We're doing Jeremiah Love and Nicholas Singleton because that is the running back
those are
class as far as I'm confirmed.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
But we'll get into that. We'll get into that next episode. But I want to watch these top 2 running backs just because I've watched some other ones and I feel like there is a pretty significant drop off. And then I still want to do some linebackers. So we'll probably do some running backs and some defense on this next episode, and I'll figure out who the other 3 are going to be. But got my first 5 coming up next. I'll let Drew plug away. Go ahead, buddy.
Yep. You find pretty much everything I do at Iron City Film, that right there on Twitter or X. I'll never get it right. But that's anything I do or put out always goes there. All my Titan stuff. Is over at Titansize.com, fan side of the Titan coverage team. Always putting out nerdy film breakdowns for Titans UDFAs. I'll be breaking down their draft class pretty soon now that we're past mini camp and all that good stuff. Be sure to follow the Substack. That's where all my draft writing is going to go. So I'll be breaking down prospects, same thing as Parker. You can see kind of how we compare and contrast our draft process. How we have very different perspectives on how we draft or how we view these guys as evaluators. But we end up kind of on the same views as them as prospect schools. So it'd be nice to have both of our writing in the same place. Be sure to check that out. But yeah, again, that's about does it for me. Everything at Iron City Film.
Yeah, no, it's fun because I feel like we have similar draft processes and like we watch the film. We're both film guys over stat guys, I believe.
Oh yeah.
But like, yeah, as we get, to the end, like the beginning and end, we're always in line. But like talking through the prospects and about what we like, what we don't like, how we see them fitting, it's always extremely different. That's why I've always loved having draft conversation with you, whether it's in, a pizza place in Mobile, Alabama, or it's here on the show. I feel like we always have good talks as far whether it's fitting players in or pros, cons about guys, or even just what we're looking for when evaluating players. So, I mean, it's always a good time. That's why I'm glad to have you on here chatting about prospects. But like I said, like Drew said, like I said, go subscribe to the Substack. It is free. I'm going to put the link in the description of the video that gets posted. This is the live, but I'll get the link posted and the actual video that gets posted. And then you can go find it on both of our X accounts, I'm pretty sure. I think you did a post yesterday, and I'll have it linked in my bio for sure. But yeah, we're just rambling about the draft, trying to build our teams. That's why I love that we have the shadow team aspect of it, because we are trying to build out 53-man rosters through exclusively the draft, no free agency outside of undrafted free agents in that year. So really, I know it's not our job. We're not getting paid millions to do it, but the draft process, the evaluation process does matter. We try and put a lot into it and try and make these teams work out. And that's just a good way to hold us accountable and follow these guys. So we'll see on the next episode. My first guy is definitely going to hit some of these running backs. Love Jeremiah Love, big fan. Nicholas Singleton, also not half bad. Really fun running back to watch. Excited to get your takes on these guys, Drew. But we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you on the Substack.